So, declarations of interest. Please let me know if you've got any declarations of interest. So we'll move on to the minutes of the 2nd of November. And if you recall, we did amend those minutes to record Laurie Davis's apologies for the meeting before, which it was my fault, Laurie. I neglected to give them, and you did phone me up specially to tell me, but because I hadn't given them, she couldn't add them in after, but that was rectified at the last meeting. Sorry about that. It's all right now. Okay. Is everybody okay about the minutes? Or any questions on the minutes? I think I'd have enough proposer for the minutes. Thank you. Several places. So are we all in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Right, we'll move on. There's no public questions. As far as I know, are there? No? Shocked if there was. So we'll move on to the Housing Committee budget estimates, and we've got Lucy Clothier, our accountancy manager, here to present this. Over to you, Lucy.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everybody. So this paper sets out the revised budget for this current year, 21-22, and the proposed base budget for next year, 22-23. It covers the general fund budgets that this committee oversees, as well as the housing revenue account. I won't go into too much detail when I'm talking through it, but if you do have any questions, then please feel free to let me know. So this budget has been prepared in accordance with the budget strategy that was approved by Council in October. So if I start with the general fund revenue area. So table 1 on page 17 sets out a summary of the proposed budget changes. The recurring changes, the pay increases, are in line with the Council's approved budget strategy. There are proposed budget adjustments of 95k, and those are broken down on table 2 on page 18. So within that, there are 2 short-term areas of staffing increase for housing strategy and housing advice. Both of those are funded by separate areas. So housing strategy is funded from external grant income that will be carried forward to next year, and housing advice will be covered from existing earmark reserves that are set aside for homelessness. The other item within there relates to a change in the funding for the housing advice team. So that isn't a change in the team itself, just between the split between the general fund and the HRA. And you will see the other side of that being in the housing revenue account area. So the sum of that means, sort of going back to table 1, we've got a proposed net service budget of 890k for next year, of which 36k is funded from reserves. Okay, general fund capital, I'll just point out the key changes within this. So we've got the 500k budget set aside for temporary accommodation. Now, due to changes in what is likely to happen with the provision of temporary accommodation, the proposal is to remove that budget from the capital programme. That doesn't reduce our kind of want or need to provide temporary accommodation. It's just that particular budget is no longer necessary, and that's because that budget was set aside to house families and single people. And luckily, due to a change to using HRA properties to house a number of families, the need for the families is lower. That doesn't mean it's gone, but it is lower. And so we're looking to do something else around temporary accommodation. So that will be a separate item. There are also 2 proposed increased new budgets. So the Green Homes LADS 3 scheme and Home Upgrade Grant Sustainable Warmth. These are new base budgets. that are linked to external funding. So that external funding would need to be agreed in order to continue those. And they are county-wide schemes in line with many of the other green homes and other sustainable warmth areas. Okay, the HRA, which you'll see there is a lot of information on the HRA in the papers. Having done the kind of the budget sessions for members and the tenant representatives, I won't go into the detail there, but I will again point out the key areas. So the first one being the dwelling rents. So obviously it's a very important part of the HRA. So the proposed increase in rents is 4.1%, which is in line with both the budget strategy and also the regulator of social housing. So that is an increase of September CPI plus 1%. That would increase average weekly rents from £85.14 to £88.63, an increase of £3.49 per week. The proposals within this budget report also include an increase to garage rents and service charges of that same amount, so 4.1%. And it is noted in the report that some of our costs, particularly on those service areas such as independent living, our costs are expected to rise by more than that amount. But because a number of those areas are based on estimates, the proposal is to just charge the 4.1% increase this year in order to then look at the actual position next year and look at the service charges then. I won't go into detail on any of those service changes, but again, feel free to ask any questions at the end. Moving on to section 11 on page 25, which sets out the medium and long-term position for the HRA. Table 6 sets out the MTFP, medium-term financial plan, and it does show that the changes that are being proposed as part of this budget setting round mean that by the end of the medium term, so year 25-26, the closing balances on the HRA reserves are lower than the recommended minimum levels. Now that's due to the changes. So there are a lot of changes within this budget setting round. Of the total of £1.2 million worth of changes this year, many of those are short term and so don't impact the longer term position as severely. However, there is an impact particularly over that shorter term. And so that gives us a deadline of making sure that we kind of bring the balances back up above the minimum recommended level. The graph on the following page, page 26, just shows then the forecast of the HRA general reserves over the longer term. So this is a forecast based on this budget, so carrying forward along with the assumed changes. So as I've said, many of those changes are expected to only be needed for a couple of years, some of them up to 8 years, particularly around the retrofit area. But that graph just shows what we would expect to happen with general reserves over that time. It's absolutely not a detailed forecast in that realistically we wouldn't expect this to actually happen, because we would expect a number of changes to happen between now and then. But all it does is allow us to make sure that decisions we are making now are financially sustainable over the longer term. And this graph sets out that actually over that time, we do drop well below the minimum recommended balance and into negative reserves. Also on that graph, the kind of faint dotted line shows the forecast that was included within the retrofit papers in September. And you can see that the current forecast is just a bit below that. That difference is because of these changes. So where these changes amount to an estimated 100k per year going forward, it means that the deficit that was reported in the retrofit papers of 900k per year has now increased to £1 million a year. I have set out in the paper that doesn't mean we need to change things now. We need to set out that we need to make those changes over the medium term and have a planned response in order to bring the financial position back into a sustainable position. Okay. So moving on to section 15, which is the HRA Capital Programme. There are only a small number of changes, but the first one is in major works, where we have included all of those retrofit works that were recommended by Housing Committee in September. So those retrofit programme is now included within this position. There is also a reprofiling of the existing capital schemes as well across major works, the New Homes and Regeneration and the Independent Living Modernisation Programme. So the New Homes and Regeneration Programme, there is a small increase in spend included within this. That increase is 39k across all of the schemes. So the proposal is that 39k is covered from this current year 21-22 contingency, which is what that contingency is in place for. I will ask you to note, though, that we don't currently know any impact of the potential and expected increase in materials and labour costs for the new build scheme. And that's something that we'd need to spend more time collating and then come back to Housing Committee with. Also included within the New Homes and Regeneration Programme, there is a proposal of 50k budget for the site at May Lane in Dursley. So this paper also sets out a proposal to appropriate that site from the general fund to the HRA, subject to a market appraisal of the value. The May Lane site in Dursley is being investigated to include within the new build programme, and so it's appropriate to kind of appropriate it to the HRA and fund those investigative works from the HRA. And the final one on independent living modernisation, so as I said, that's been reprofiled. So altogether, the programme has the same budget in total, although some of those works have been moved, and that includes bringing forward one of the modernisation schemes. So the proposal is for 3 schemes to be completed in 22-23, and there's a paper that will be brought to Housing Committee in February for approval of those schemes. Okay, so that's my run through, but as I said, I'm very happy to take any questions you might have.
Questions? Colin and then Paula.
Yeah, I see risk and uncertainties. Just how much are we worried about inflation? Because it could significantly drop our income. Are we worried, or are we pretty happy that it's not going to go down?
That's a very good question, and one that is very difficult to answer, because there is even more uncertainty with inflation now than there may be in another year. It is difficult to say. Our rental increases are generally linked to inflation. However, it may be that some of our costs aren't linked to the same level of inflation. We could see one go up more than the other. If our costs do go up by more than the amount we are able or want to increase rents by, that will cause further pressure to the HRA over the medium and long term.
Hello, this is probably my general ignorance, so forgive me. 4.9, temporary accommodation. Are we now accommodating homeless families within our council stock? Is that what that paragraph means?
Yes, we have a set number of properties identified within the HRA that are used for temporary accommodation for families.
Can I ask how many?
No. We've got 3 properties that we've got a service level agreement with Housing. We've got 3 properties that we have a service level agreement with housing advice with, and those properties are the former scheme manager properties. So they're rolling, they're always in use, and we currently have 7 other people on licence. They're on short-term licence, and they're in the property until the homelessness duty has been verified, and then we either move them on or they take on a tenancy in the property they're in.
Thanks, Michelle. Putting you on the spot. Any more questions? Oh, gosh, Chris.
Yeah. I'm just curious as to how the tiers of risk assessment work within the council. So you've got, obviously you're looking at really high level risk at the HRA level. How does that then relate to kind of lower level risk? For example, within the task and finish group, looking at retrofit, we've tried to consider the dimensions of risk, the marketplace, the contextual risk that might affect, the success of the project. How do those kind of translate in your mind into the upper level HRA?
Yeah, that's a great question. As you say, there are varying levels of risk, and so this is very much a high level summary of where we're expecting things to go, and it's done in line with the budget strategy that's approved by council. Where risks are identified within, say, task and finish groups, we would expect those to feed through to the budget setting to kind of factor into future years. But this is very much a broad level of risk that we consider when we're looking over the much longer term.
Okay. Yeah, Lucas.
Yeah, I'm coming back to the service charges. We may take a hit on that, I understand. Is it possible to adjust service charges mid-term, or do we every time have to run the whole year as them?
Thank you. Yes, it is technically feasible to change service charges mid-year. We would need to make sure we give tenants at least 28 days notice of any changes. However, it's not something we have done, certainly not in recent years. But it could be something that could be considered by Housing Committee if you feel that it's appropriate during the year.
Anyone else? Nick.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got a couple of questions. The first one, can you confirm to me whether in these forecasts, whether the costs around the ship-in development have been built into these already, or if these are away from that without that yet being built in?
Yes, the canal side site, which is the former ship-in site, is included within these forecasts. It includes both the cost of the build and the ongoing rental income from those properties.
Thank you. I'll call it ship-in site just for my ease, because that's how I know it. Can you confirm what the cost of the build for the ship-in site is within this forecast, please?
I will have to just check that. Can you give me a minute and I will come back if we kind of go on to another question first? Is that okay?
Yeah, no problem. That's absolutely fine. So while you're checking that, I'll just move on to a slightly different task. So the general forecast within, I think it was page 25, shows a debt rising of up to £30 million within the housing revenue account in the next 30 years. Have I read that right? Is that correct? Sorry, can you say where that is again, please? Yeah, I think it's table 11, page 25. Just bear with me 2 seconds. Page 26. So the HRA General Reserves forecast currently shows the housing revenue account in positive financial state, and then it's got between 2021 and 22, so this financial year, up to 2025. That suggests to me a loss of of 30 million. Is that right?
For that period, if you look at table 6, it sets out the position in each year up to 25-26.
Yeah, my question is from this point, so 21-22 to 20-51-52, does that show a loss of £30 million?
Yes, it does. It's over £30 million. Yes.
Thank you. That's it from me. If I could get the answers to the second question, that'd be brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah. So the budget included for what was the former ship-in site is £1.83 million.
Any more questions? No? Can I have a proposer for this? And are you content to read that on the screen, or do you want me to read it out? You content? Yeah. So do I have a proposer for this, please? She wants me to read it out.
No, I'll just flip the screen. Goes over two screens.
Righto. Okay. Are you proposing? Thank you, Lucas. Do I have a seconder? Oh, both of you. Would you like to speak now or no? Debate. Say any debate, because I think we've had a really good explanation here, as well as the briefing we had as well, which we weren't able to have in this chamber in the end, were we? Anybody? Any debate? Nick.
Yeah, just one point. So I just a general thought really. So if this let's just come through. If this site the former ship-in site was to be removed from the housing revenue account, would I be right in thinking then that there would be a net gain of £1.83 million? It is a question. I raise it in debate because I know the answer. So the reason I raise it at this point would be that surely members would agree with me that the logical thing to do would be to remove this.
That's fine. Any more debate? Lucas.
Whereas you might gain 2 million then if you take it out, we then have not got the funding there anymore to actually do it. And therefore also fall short on possibly projected income from that site and the rentals. And we're here to, presumably it's all going to be affordable housing anyway. So we would then make a serious dent again in the availability of affordable housing. And I think there's very few sites that are come up that we could actually do affordable housing in. And I would fight to retain this as an affordable housing site. And I want to see it move forward as well. I hope we don't have to have the same discussion in a year's time. But there's other things probably around it.
Anyone else?
Yeah, to take your point about affordable housing and it's difficult to find sites for that, of course it is. Unfortunately, the site that we're referring to has had housing rejected for it twice, based on the open market housing. So my worry about this site in particular is, are we saying that, you know, if we're keeping this in the housing revenue account, that it's okay to have a site not suitable for open market housing, that is suitable for council tenants? I think that sends a really poor message from this council. That would be my only observation.
I think it's unsuitable for general sort of open market. Doesn't mean that unsuitable doesn't reflect on the quality of the accommodation. It's more got to do, as far as I understand, with the industrial heritage corridor. And so we've now got in our emerging local plan that the council has adopted, we have a extra weight put on sites for affordable housing. So we are somewhat confident that the planners will therefore look differently at this site when it comes up for affordable housing and allow building there.
Yeah, please, yeah. Yeah, I absolutely take your point. Unfortunately, when the planning inspector gave their comments around this site, they deemed it totally unsuitable for housing. There are a number of reasons for that: the industrial estate, the canal, the poor access for traffic, the size of the site in general. There are a number of reasons it's totally unsuitable, and it's actually been rejected twice, although it was pulled once before it could be officially rejected. I've got real concerns that we are looking at spending an additional £1.8 million on a site that is unsuitable for council tenants. That is the bottom line. That is what we've just had confirmed. I'm firstly staggered by the figure, which I can only assume will probably go up given the cost of building at the moment. It's cost of building is not getting any cheaper. So my concern is to throw another £1.8 million at a site that the town council are against, the people of Stonehouse have voted against, and the planning inspectors have deemed totally unsuitable, is a real worry and a real poor statement from this council. I won't come back anymore. It's just my final observations on the site.
Thank you. That's your opinion. Any more debate on this budget? No? Do you want to sum up, Lucas?
I really commend the budget as it's been set out, and I feel it gives us a start this year. We all know the risks involved with this, and we just need to be very aware that we manage those risks in the years to come. But this first year, we are setting out on a road to actually give all our tenants a accommodation and with retrofit that's fit for the future.
Thank you very much. Now, Colin, I didn't ask if you wanted to come back. Okay. Shall we go to the vote then? Those in favour? Thank you very much. That looks unanimous. So we'll move on to item number 6. And we've got John Coleridge here tonight, who's our principal accountant, to present the budget monitoring report for 21-22 quarter 2. John, over to you.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everybody. Hopefully we've had sight of this budget monitoring paper previously, so if I can just give an overview of the salient points this evening. So this is the budget monitoring report for 21-22 quarter 2, and it's to present the 21-22 forecast outturn position against the general fund and housing revenue account, budgets and capital programme. So if we move down to the general fund revenue budget position, table 1 shows the budget monitoring position for quarter 2, showing an overspend of 10k, and as you will see, the variances shown on the right are fairly small, so I will briskly move on. Looking at the general fund capital programme, if I can just draw your attention to the table itself, table 2. Unfortunately, there's been a slight error in that. If you look at the table, you will notice that in columns 2 and 3, the totals don't actually add up. This doesn't affect the actual content within the table. It's just due to a late adjustment, the actual totals were incorrectly pulled through. So if you ignore the totals and just focus on the actual table content itself. So the spend is currently forecast at 2.3 million. And just looking at the variances, you'll note there's only one real big one that stands out, and that is in the Green Home Lads. This is a Green Home Lads scheme for the park homes has been aligned to the current position of the grant, and 654k was carried forward to 21-22, and there's also an allocation of 950k for 21-22, which has been used to continue the work. As Lucy mentioned earlier, the temporary accommodation budget of 500k has been taken out of the capital programme, and this is due to the project now being delivered in a different way, but the same outcome of having additional temporary accommodation in the district will continue. If we move on to paragraph 5, the housing revenue account budget position. The monitoring position for the service of Q2 shows a projected net overspend of 519k, which is 2.3% of gross spend against the current budget. And this is shown in table 3. We haven't got any page numbers here, so if you just scroll down to table 3. Sorry? Sorry, yeah. Sorry, it's 48 on, so I'm looking at a different screen, so I do apologise. Yeah, table 3, HRI revenue summary. If I just pick out, again, the salient or the most, the largest variances, if you look at 336k loss of income, the number of empty void properties which are made available to rent and subsequently let to those on our waiting list each week is 31% higher than the comparable pre-COVID period of 2019-20, which is 33 proposed properties per month. This significantly improved performance reflects the hard work of the property care team. The number of tenants leaving the council dwellings has, however, increased over the last 18 months. This, alongside the residual impact of restricted works during lockdown and the ongoing material and labour market pressures, has resulted in a higher number of voids than projected. As a consequence, rental income is under budget. Next large variance is under supervision and management, which is 372k underspend. A number of posts are currently vacant, and it is expected that the total staffing saving across the year will total 226k. There is also an underspend of 107k on IT software. This is predominantly relates to the budget available for a new housing system, which is now due for implementation later in the year. The other large variance is in repairs and maintenance, and just a few words on that. 480k overspend. As mentioned before, void costs are expected to be higher than budget due to increase in council tax of 100k because of higher void rates. An additional 250k has been allocated to make good the void properties and bring them back to a habitable use. This will allow the contractors to put additional resource into our properties and help reduce the backlog of void properties more quickly. There is also an overspend of 167k in property care. This predominantly relates to the use of subcontractors for specialist roles such as roofing and drainage. Excuse me a second. Okay, moving on to paragraph 6, which is the HRA capital programme. This has been revised to 21 million for 2021-22, and this includes a revised capital budget due to reprofiling of capital programmes over financial years as included in the budget setting report. And this is detailed in table 5. Due to the reprofiling, you will see there are no variances, but if I just talk you through some of the major capital projects. So the major works programmes are all currently expected to deliver to budget following reprofiling, as just mentioned, of the capital programme. Of the capital works, 435k is allocated for the implementation of a new housing IT system, as previously mentioned. New build and regeneration is on target. Work is progressing well on Broadfield Road and Ringfield Close and Sunfield Road. These sites will all deliver a total of 36 affordable properties, and that is broken down into 31 affordable rent, 3 shared ownership, and 2 older persons shared ownership. Independent living and modernisation. The sheltered modernisation programme is on target for 21-22. Work commenced on Vizard Close in August and is due to complete in November. Just an update on that. I think the Trade District has done their work on that. We're just waiting on Severn Trent to finish their work. And work will then commence on Jenner Court with completion expected in March 22. Finally, from me, on acquisitions, these are on target. 3 properties were purchased in Q1 and 3 properties in Q2. And that concludes the budget monitoring report. Thank you.
Many thanks, John. Any questions? Paula and Lucas now.
Hi, John, I'm not sure if this is actually a question for you or whether someone else needs to answer this. Let's look at the housing IT systems. Is that to manage tenancies going forward?
Is that the IT systems?
And when would that likely to be implemented?
You okay to answer that, Joe?
Yeah, so the project itself is progressing, and last time I spoke to the project manager, we're anticipating that going to tender this month with a return in January, and the answer is yes, it does manage both tenancy management and repairs and maintenance and the property care service.
Brilliant. So it's progressing. When would you be likely to see a new system in place? I've got a reason for asking this.
So in terms of being realistic, the end-to-end process is likely to take about 24 months. We get the first part of the system implemented, we think, and set in within about 9 months. But you know what these things are like. It takes some time to settle down, train people, and the rest of it. So we are going to put the system in incrementally over that period.
Thank you.
I had the same question, so that's all. Basically, I'm very concerned that we can't fully optimize all the work that all the individuals in the housing team put in without a good IT system. It doesn't do either the tenants or the staff any justice. So I'm concerned that it's taken this long. That's all I can say to this.
Nicholas?
I only get called Nicholas when I'm in trouble. Yeah, just a couple of questions from me. I don't know if you want to take them sort of all in one go or separately. The first one, can you confirm the loss of income from empty dwellings? And I think in the last meeting, Joe, I asked you around this, and you were going to get me the amount of these dwellings that have been empty for longer than a month. So I'm after 2 figures there. The first one is the loss of income from empty dwellings, and a little explanation around this. And the second one is how many of those dwellings have been empty for over 4 weeks, so over a month. Thank you. That's the first one.
Those figures are something that we'd need to look at, but we can get that back to you over email. Okay.
Thank you. The second question I've got is that there was a mention there, and I lost the page or the table that it referred to, but there was a mention of 250k set aside for void properties. Can you just explain to me what this will be used for? And if we're currently handling void properties efficiently, which I was told at the last meeting we were, what's the reason for an extra 250k for this?
Right, we can't decide who to answer that question. I'll start. The £250,000 is going to be used to add a resource to the work we're doing on void properties. We are probably handling our void property process more efficiently than we've ever done. It was mentioned in the report that we're over 30% up on our pre-COVID levels of returning voids into use. About every month, approximately 33 new empty properties are coming back into let. The challenge that we're facing is dealing with a significant backlog of work that still relates to the lockdown period. We're working hard to get on the front foot of that. The number of voids that we've got in works is reducing significantly every week. We're still not at our pre-COVID levels for that, but week by week we are turning more and more. However, in order to get ahead of that, additional resource, £250,000 is going to be brought in to provide more contractors so that we can get on the front foot, so that we can get to our pre-COVID levels of actual numbers of properties that are in works.
Thank you. And my final question, I've lost the table, but one of the final tables that Joe referred to, there was it was listed as canal site this time, but again, the former ship-in site has been revised down from 51 to 27. Can we explain that variation, please?
So that's something that was in the proposed budget, a revision of all of the new build schemes in line with their current estimated timescales. A new build information paper was published in September, I believe, and it's in line with that paper that was published.
So just so I'm clear, so that revision down is because the timescale is now longer than was originally expected, is that correct?
The amount of works that are expected to complete within this year have been revised down from this time last year when the base budget was set.
Thank you.
Any more questions for John? Can I have a proposal? Shall we go to the proposal then? That the committee resolves to note the out-term forecast for general fund and HRA revenue budgets and the capital programme for this committee. And Paula is proposing it. Thank you. Do I have a seconder? And that's seconded by Laurie Davis. Thank you. Do you wish to speak, Laurie, now? Behind your very shiny mask? Debate then. Any debate? No debate? Paula, do you want to say anything?
No, just that it was an excellent and clear report. I don't think there's anything to fall out with there. Thank you.
It is a good report, isn't it?
I'd just like to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I keep
No,
missing.
it's fine.
I keep missing my colleague on my left.
I only just put my hand up.
Okay.
I'd just like to commend the work that it's very easy to lose sight of the historic position when you're looking at the current position, and whilst at the same time, you know, the context, the world is changing around us. The demand for housing is greater, and it's appropriate that we respond to it, even though that we're actually performing better than previously. The demand means that we even perform better, but it's important just to contextualize what we're doing. So I commend the work that's been done by the team.
Do you wish to come in?
I just a little bit of a on the side of caution, really. So I would suggest perhaps we are performing better, but until we get the data for how many, particularly on voids, this point is how long those voids have been empty for. So this is data I asked for at the last meeting, and I take the point that there are less voids than there were before COVID, and that is a good thing. But if those voids that remain have been empty for 3, 4, 5 months and are contributing to a large lack of income, then I would question whether we are performing better. And I'm not sure that we can assume from the report that we've just seen that we are until we get the data for how many voids we have, how empty they've been, and what the loss of income from those is compared to pre-COVID levels. So it's just a little bit of word of caution there. I'm not sure that we are performing better on voids, and I've not seen from that we are until I know how long those voids have been empty for. So it's just a point of caution for me, really, there.
Thank you, it's noted. So shall we go to the vote, please? Those in favour? Thank you very much, that looks unanimous. Item number 7 is really moving on now to the delivery plan for the council plan. And so we're going to look at the performance indicators that's relevant to this committee. And Keith, you're going to introduce this, aren't you?
Thank you, Chair. As you've just said, Chair, this paper and the documents associated with it relate to performance indicators that are linked to council plan. Council plan was approved by council in October, and so it rests on three pillars really: economic development, community and well-being, and economic development. And within that, a range of our priorities, and linked to those key actions. What we're not in a position to alter are the key priorities within the council plan. But what we need to do, and what we need to think about very carefully as a committee, is how we're going to measure our progress to achieve them. So what the delivery plan provides is some indicators so we can measure our progress. Now, not in every case, but in most cases, we're able to provide some specific numbers for which we can judge our progress on a quarterly or half year or annual basis. So what I'm presenting to you tonight is the opportunity to look at those. Now, in the council plan, of course, there are the three main themes, but there are probably in the region of 80 priorities. Not all of them is appropriate to bring to every committee. The ones that are detailed here are the ones which appertain most specifically to housing, and many of them do not sit purely in isolation to one committee. But I think the focus of this committee could comfortably be the ones that are presented here tonight. There has been already a training session organised by colleagues in policy governance on how we might monitor and use these performance indicators, and there will be further training for performance monitors of this committee, because these measures will form the basis of how we monitor, how this committee monitors its work. So it's something that we'll be returning to and coming back to on a regular basis. It's important that we have the opportunity, and we have had an informal meeting of a joint meeting of community services and licensing and housing committee to consider these. It's important we give it an airing tonight, because these are going to be with us and form the basis of our performance management. Finally, I would say, Chair, if I could, that these are flexible and will need to grow and change as we move through the year and as we move through the delivery of the council plan, which is a 5-year plan. So they're not in themselves cast in tablets of stone once we make a decision tonight, but they are a really important framework against which we can monitor our progress. And of course, if you sit that against the work of the other committees, we'll have a really comprehensive view of our delivery against the council plan. So really important that we have a chance to look at these now and can then move forward and be with us for a while. Thank you, Chair.
Any questions or yeah, Paula and then Jenny.
Hiya. I'm really glad that you've added in the work that the strategy team do to facilitate properties in partner agencies with the new affordable homes completed by partners, which is great. But when I look at CW 2.2, no, I don't. I look at CW 2.3, prioritise the prevention of homelessness, that section. It says, by delivering the Next Steps programme and invest in temporary accommodation and specialist support, including working with partners county-wide to develop specialist housing and support needed. And then the measures are increase the number of homeless cases prevented by 25% per annum. With the homeless legislation the way it is, homeless prevention also includes homeless relief. So I think that ought to be in there as well. People make a homeless application and then there's a 56-day period for prevention. and a 56-day period for relief before a full homeless duty is accepted. So if we are talking about prevention, as we would interpret it, it would include relief as well. So I wonder if that could be included. And then it's reduced the number of households in temporary accommodation after 56 days by 25%, which is fine. But the actual priorities are investing in temporary accommodation. So I'm wondering if there ought to be something about how we're progressing on that, and also the Next Steps accommodation programme, which I understand is a county-wide bid, and it's got about 650,000 for the county for the accommodation of chaotic single people. So there ought to be some sort of measuring the success of that. And that concludes my lecture. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to recap, so are you suggesting for the first bullet point on CW 2.3 that we put in more a more specific explanation? So we should say including relief.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah. And then on the second part, which is to do with how households in households in. I'll just wait for Councillor Davis. Been well. Yeah, I think they're two really important points. The first one is about investment, and I think it might be appropriate, although we may not have it as a target, that we should report on investment. It might be difficult in that sense to give it as to measure against a target of investment. Yeah, but I think we can. Yeah. I think we can report on investment. I think reporting on reporting, even if the target is fixed, we can still. Yeah. And then your final point was about reporting on delivery. Yeah. So just repeat that again if you could.
So it's got about delivering the next steps of the accommodation programme. So I was on the website. It looks like we've got a joint county bid with the other districts, which are, I think it's about 5,000 for that.
Oh, sorry. I haven't got my microphone on. Yeah. So I just was hoping that there would be some sort of monitoring or some sort of report, ongoing report of the success of that programme.
Delivery against the Next Steps accommodation programme.
Brilliant.
What we try to do with these numbers is to give ourselves some specific numerical targets. I think they're important, but to report on those other two items as a report of progress, I think would be appropriate.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Really good, really good. Thank you, Paula. Jenny.
Under CW 2.4, where it says increase the number of tenants engaged who are under 30 years old, do you think there should be a more specific target? Because just increase, I mean, we could just get one. Do you think there ought to be a set target of people, of what increase we wish to make, so that we can measure our sense against? Because just the word increase seems a bit vague.
I think it's aspirational as much as anything. I think this is a really, really tricky one, isn't it? So.
Yeah, I think at the moment as well, Jenny, we haven't actually done any work on age groups when we've had tenant events. So that's something we're going to add in now, just so that we can see. I know previously we tried to hold some events at GL11 where we actually negotiated with them to provide childcare, and we didn't get any success with that at all. So it's something that we are addressing again, and we are going to start looking at age groups. We're also looking at doing a lot of Survey Monkey type things, so we can gauge tenants' reactions from there about what perhaps a younger group would like to see from us. Certainly the previous event we had in October, we've got some really great ideas from people of what they're interested in. So it's just trying to target that younger group and seeing what would make them engage with us, you know, what's really interesting for them.
Thank you.
If I could just come in on the specific numbers, I think it's completely legitimate within the delivery plan for us to put in the details. I don't think we know at the moment quite how many young people under 30 are involved. But there's quite a lot of flexibility in this, and if we note it now, we can report at future meetings on the way that is progressing, and it may be that during the course of this next cycle, we can put a specific number on that once we get some baseline numbers. So although we might not know it now, I think it is legitimate to note within this that we want to get some baseline information and seek to put a specific number in, although we couldn't do it right now.
I didn't notice any other hands. Oh, Nick. I'm calling you Nicholas because it says Nicholas on your thing.
That's okay, no problem. It's a couple of questions from me. So it's nice to see a plan from this council with actual timescales attached to it. So I thank you for that. Just a couple of bits from me. The first one on page 58, 2.1. How many net new affordable council homes did we build in the last 3 years? And how does this compare to the target for the next 5? So if we got, I understand the figures are there for the next 5. I'm just wondering how they compare to, say, the last 3 years. Has anyone got those figures to hand?
No, we've not got them to hand, Councillor, but we provide them and circulate them as a comparison.
It's okay. I'm just curious as to how we'd compared to the previous period. So of these, the houses that are factored in the next 5 years, I think it's page 58, 2.1. How many of those are factored in relation to the shipping site specifically?
I don't know the answer to that, Councillor.
So we don't. We've got a budget for it. We don't know how many houses we plan to build.
I'll come back to you with any information I've got.
Today or by email?
It is on the information sheet. I believe it was 9.
So 9 of those houses are in direct relation to the former shipping site, yeah? Okay, thank you. And one other point, which is completely, it's just one that I didn't seem to make sense to me. I hope somebody can clear it up. On page 59, 2.3, it's got that we intend to measure the number of homeless cases prevented. I'm just curious how we do that. I'm not making a point. I'm just curious as to how do you actually monitor or assess the number of homeless cases prevented? Is it just based on the previous year's homeless figures, or is there actually something that we're doing specifically to give those numbers?
I can't give the answer to that, but what I can give you is a bit of information that a week tomorrow we will have a session on homelessness and what are we doing it on?
Homelessness in the housing market and
yeah.
the availability of private rentals.
Yeah, and from Housing Advice from Julian and Pippa Stroud. So we will have a lot of information then on prevention. Is very, very hard to judge, and I think Paula might have a little bit of information that she can share with us as a housing professional.
Yeah, Nick, basically it's based on government stats. So people who are facing homelessness, so they may have a notice or they may be in unsatisfactory accommodation, and the housing advice team will work with them before to resolve their homelessness before such time as a homeless accepted duty would take place. So it's basically reducing the misery for them and reducing the costs for the local authority because it avoids the need for temporary accommodation.
Okay, so if I just come back, so because it says SDC measures increase the number of homeless cases prevented by 25% per annum. So that is based on the number of people that report their homeless to the government, and us as a council stepping in before they are deemed homeless. Is that correct? Thank you.
Absolutely, yes. Yes, so before they need to hit, you know, the actual roofless stage.
Thank you.
Any more questions on these excellent KPIs?
I've just got one. It was just on the tenant involvement. I just think there's a typo, and it was around
Where you on?
oh goodness, now I've got distracted by listening to everyone else. Oh no.
We've had it just now, haven't we?
Yeah, it was on the tenants' involvement. If I can. Why can't I find it?
Page 60, I
Yeah.
think,
Oh right.
Matty.
Okay. Thank you.
CW 2.4, isn't it?
Yes. There we go.
Yeah.
It's the first line. So SD measures at least 80% of tenants satisfied with the training they receive through. And I'm sure there's a word that must be missing on the end there. I just wondered what it might be. Just to point that out. Sorry to be pernickety, but I'm intrigued. What they,
I think we ought to find out.
Just thought I'd put that
We'll
out.
have a look at that.
I think it's meant to be through tenant events.
Oh, right, okay, well, just, thank you.
Just, there is one KPI there that I want to refer to specifically, which relates to retrofit, and just for the moment, my papers have also shuffled, and I'm just trying to find the piece on retrofit.
Page 56.
Yeah, what the measures there relate to, the second bullet point is an average of 470 homes are retrofitted each year. That's a target that we're going to aim for and measure ourselves against. What it will be possible to do, and I suggest we add into here, is retrospectively to be able to say in the previous quarter how many tons of carbon we have saved, if you like, or prevented.
Oh, yeah,
through. Yeah, it has been mentioned. What we can't do is set it as a target because there's such a lot of variation between the sorts of units we're working with. But we can, a bit like the way we might report on the Next Step accommodation programme, we can report on the impact that this work is having on carbon savings. So I suggest we add that into Chair.
That was brought up at one of the briefings, wasn't it? And I think Ms. Steve, who can't be with us tonight, was happy to say that even though it can't be a target, we can comment on it. So it'd be good news, wouldn't it? Yeah. Chris has a question, and then Laurie.
This is a question that I'm not expecting to be answered this evening, but I'd like to raise it. Obviously, our ambition for affordable homes, both in terms of the council actions and its work with partners, are to be commended, I think. But I'm really curious, and I think it's an important metric that we need to introduce, is how does that compare to the demand, the need for affordable homes, for social housing? The council doesn't control the whole situation. It didn't make the situation, what I would call a housing crisis in Stroud and more broad. But, we can do all our best. But one thing we really need to know is what the actual demand is, the market demand is for affordable housing. If it's increasing exponentially, now circa 330 is kind of scratching the surface, isn't it? I think we have a duty to sort of be aware of that and track that and compare ourselves to it, whilst fully acknowledging that we don't control everything. That was kind of a statement, wasn't it?
I'm not altogether sure how we can do a KPI on that one, but I take your point. I think we need to look into it. Yeah. Laurie's first, and then Paula.
Kind of relates, and it's coming back to the 25% of increasing homeless prevention. My worry with, while I think it's fantastic to be ambitious, my worry is that we have got a housing crisis, and we are already seeing, we'll see even further, a large amount of people becoming homeless. So whilst we've got that really ambitious target, I think it's going to be very, very difficult for us to overcome that, considering where we are at currently. And with that 25% target, have we, and sorry if this has already been pointed out, have we put any funding or extra resources behind that ambition? Because I know, we currently we give grants to people for deposits and things like that, but I'm just wondering, with the state of things that currently are, if there's anything else that will be helping towards that target of 25%.
Yeah, it's a very difficult situation that this local authority finds itself in, like other local authorities, and probably like many local authorities, in a market where, and the chair referred to the housing review panel, extraordinary housing review panel on the 15th of December, where we'll be talking about the wider market conditions, the number of affordable rented houses anywhere, including in the private sector, in Stroud districts, is really challenging, and what we can do about it as a local authority is quite limited. Within the budgets that are available, and we've just spent some time, I think, looking at our budget moving forward, we've tried to allocate resources to do as much as we can within the envelope of the budget to do what we can about it, and to reflect a way of this committee monitoring our work against it. It is a very challenging situation now, and one of the reasons, and I think we anticipate more calls, more pressure from people who are finding themselves in difficult housing situations coming to our door, because it's so difficult to find affordable private rented accommodation, and there's a number of reasons for that, but Stroud district does suffer as badly as many other places in that regard.
Sorry, just going back to Chris and to Laurie's point. When these came out, first of all, I did suggest that maybe having the Home Seeker Plus housing register figures regularly reported on, and also how many people are actually housed and the type of property that they're housed into through Home Seeker Plus as well, just so that we can get an idea for the amount of demand, and also how much of that we're meeting on a sort of regular basis.
I think that would be, I mean, by all means, I think we can include that in this. We need to be careful that we are, in many ways, bound by what is in the council plan in terms of what we report on. But I think it's legitimate for us to provide other information which sets an appropriate context. What we don't want to do, and we need to be careful of it, I would advise, is producing something which becomes overburdensome in terms of reporting. But if we could, Chair, take that away and look at whether we're able to do that as a commentary, and there are a number of those, so we can do that.
I think we can do this another way. But these KPIs specifically got to relate to council plan as it stands. I'm sorry, I keep turning away from the microphone and I keep getting glared at. It's just very difficult, isn't it, not to talk to somebody? So I think we can look at that another way.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just kind of thought this is one of my shopping lists.
I know. And wouldn't it be great if we could do it all?
Yeah.
Thank you. I think we've done. Oh, Nick.
Thanks. I've just got one more question I'd like to ask. And I don't know how easy this will be to come by. No doubt somebody will have to send this at a later point. But would it be possible to get a breakdown of which towns specifically the potential new homes set out on page 58 CW 2.1, those numbers that we've said that we are going to we forecast building in the next 5 years. Could we get a town breakdown of where they are? I'm just conscious to make sure that we are looking at across the whole of Stroud and looking at all the different areas of Stroud when we're looking at new builds, as opposed to just focusing on one or two key areas. So I don't know if we could get that breakdown at all.
We can provide that information, whether we include it in the formal reporting in this format, in order that this, because what we've tried to do with this piece is move away from actually what was actually quite an inconsistent and clunky performance reporting that existed across committees. I do think we can provide that information, Councillor, and we can provide it on a regular basis to this committee, whether we include it in this performance piece. I think it's for us to consider, but we can certainly provide the information of where we are building homes by market town or by settlement.
I think that'd be really useful.
It has been reported in the past, I can assure you, but because we are working to the council plan on this, it would be a bit onerous to include it in here. I would
Well, I would suggest if we've set out the numbers, so the document reads SDC measures numbers of new affordable council homes completed, and it has the exact numbers there. So if we have the exact numbers, it surely wouldn't be an awful lot of additional work to list where those numbers are going to be based. I'm just conscious that if we're going to, use this document to measure against performance, it would be great to document where those homes are expected to be. I think that would be really useful. Just my view.
We'll take that away and look at it. Lucas, you would.
I feel it's a bit crystal ball gazing, because you don't know what opportunities arise, what planning consents are achieved. These are targets. So yes, you can possibly get what the target is for Stroud or Stonehouse, Dursley or Watton on the Edge. But it all depends on what actually happens, isn't it? And so it's a target rather than, a fait accompli.
Want to come in before, because I'm conscious I missed you. You were on my pad and I skipped over you. Laurie.
Just to say on that, it's all very well knowing where they're going to be or where we plan to have them, but you can't only just look at that. You have to look at where demand is across the district, where we already have a large amount of council homes maybe in one area and have nothing in another area. There's many different things to consider rather than just stating where those things are and where they plan to be. Also really important is having the sites to be able to build upon. It may be that some areas that there just is no suitable sites. So just having those places and those amounts is not enough to get a full picture of where's needed and what needs to be done. So I think it's a bit of a loose end really for you to go down, but
I'd just like to add to that as well. If we're procuring affordable housing through housing associations as well, and there's 120 homes being procured a year through them, I mean, are you really suggesting that you want to know how many of them are in each? Or why would we concentrate on the small number of council homes?
We appear to have strayed into debate here. So I'm going to stop you there and take the proposal. Okay. So the council recommends to Strategy and Resources Committee that these performance indicators are incorporated in the council plan and updated and monitored according to the council's performance management framework. Do I have a proposer for this, please? Chris is proposing. I've only got one bit on my list. I've only got, she's done me down. And the committee, where's the next bit? The committee resolves. Is that where I'm starting? Yeah. The committee resolves to, see, I read it from you last time, didn't I? The committee resolves to agree on the performance indicators that are relevant to this committee and I've done that bit, okay? Thank you. So you all, it's probably on the other page. I'm doing it down really because she's such a good girl. So I've got a proposer here with Chris and a seconder with Lucas. Lucas, do you wish to say anything now?
Yes, I feel it's clear that we are already trying to preempt the future by talking about how these performance indicators can be fleshed out, how they can be updated, how they can be more detailed. I think these performance indicators are a field in which we got to put a lot more data and work with as they go along. So rather than spending the whole night sort of trying to really create the perfect detailed performance indicator, I think we got to accept that this is the start of a journey, and we need to all work consciously and really make sure that the whole district benefits from them.
Anyone else? Jenny?
I think the most important thing is that we have now got some smart indicators that we can measure ourselves by. They may not be totally complete because things change as they go along. If you're going to do land acquisition, you might have just a couple of days to move. And it's not always in the perfect place, but it's where it is. And I think it's a success for this council to have prioritised where it wants to go and how we can measure if we've got there.
Thanks, Jenny. Anybody else? And any more debate? Yep.
Yeah, I'll just come back to a couple of the points that were mentioned earlier. So I don't think it is crystal balling or asking to predict the future when a number of things are already in place. So we already have budgeted for these sites. We've already listed the amount of, down to the single house, how many we're going to build each year. I don't think it's the end of the world or the end of the earth to ask just to note where they are planning to be. But I take your point that there is only so much that can go in. And I just, while we're just finalising up really, just like to say it's great that we have now got some timescales and some specific targets, and this is a lot better. I'm just making the point that if we are able to budget for in advance and we are able to number in advance, then it would be great to just list where they're going to be. I don't think that's a huge ask, but take the point that there is only so much you can get in these points. Thank you.
I think there's been a great, well, I know there's been a great deal of work gone into this council plan from various groups, and we've had several briefings on it. It's the first airing we've had it here tonight at a committee, and I think we've given it a very good airing here. As Jenny has indicated, you know, now we really do have some smart indicators to work to, rather than marking our own homework, which we seem to be doing with performance management over many years. In some ways, we were simply looking at the things we were good at. Now we are setting targets, and we've got indicators for it. So I think we're heading in the right direction, and I think we've got some really good points here. But it's not a document that's closed. We can keep looking at it. So with that, I will ask you, do you want to sum up now, Chris?
Just a quick few words. I'm happy to propose this, and I share some of the other councillors' perspectives that, you know, this is a really important step forwards for turning kind of wishes and sort of broad aims and objectives into a reality. There are many more steps to go, of course, and you know, to have a high level of confidence. I do feel that I'm probably a bit of a kind of KPI geek. I acknowledge that, but or a kind of bit of a kind of process geek. But I do think, yeah, we need to get smarter about the difference between a kind of an output and an outcome. It's probably a bit over technical, but they are different, and I do think we need to get better about inputs and outputs and so forth, so that they're more meaningful both in the tracking and the communicating. But it's a really good start, and I'm really, really happy to commend it and propose it.
Thank you very much, Chris. Shall we go to the vote then? Those in favour? Yep, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. So we are moving on. You have had a paper circulated to you on the cleaner estates standards. So we've had a progress update on that, and Michelle is here, so we can cross-examine her if you feel so fit. landed loads of things on her. She didn't know she was going to have to talk about tonight already. Are there any questions on it? Would you like to have a chat with us, Michelle, or are you content not to? I'm very happy for you to talk to your paper if you wish. Oh, yeah. Mike, are you coming in? No? No?
Because he's trying to bully.
I'm very much aware that in the last week, refuse has been a bit contentious across the district, and I really just wanted to reassure everybody that obviously the ethos to our cleaner estate strategy is to look at the challenges and to improve them as we work through some of the issues that we're coming across. So the locked skip that we've purchased for Acacia Drive is in place, and within a week it was filled. So I'm not sure whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, because the idea behind that is it should save us money. So when the neighbourhood management officers and the neighbourhood wardens are out in the district, if they come across fly tipped out items, they let our site officers know, who go and move them. So the idea is, rather than having to pay for every time we get a collection, it's all done in one. So we'll remain to see whether this is going to be a good investment or not, but we're hoping it will be. One of the issues we're really struggling with at the moment is broken bins, and we're struggling to get anyone to repair them. So we're having to order new ones. There's quite a long lead on time on getting new bins, so that's been a bit of an issue. We're keeping all the bins in the hope that we will find somebody that can repair them. So that's something we're working on at the moment. We have just invested in 11 CCTV cameras for Chapel Street. In that particular area, we've had some real issues with ASB and with fly tipping and refuse, and we've really battled with it. So we're going to put CCTV cameras right along the street. We've got quite a lot of buy-in from a lot of tenants there. So we're working with them, and we're going to arrange some joint team days with the neighbourhood management officers and the neighbourhood wardens. And if there are fly tipped refuse bags, which tend to be the main thing there, we're actually going to go through them, because if we can actually find addresses of people in the bags, then we can issue fixed penalty notices, which is something we're going to look at going through as we move forward.
As it's in my area that I just wanted, that's fantastic to hear that that's going ahead, and I'd love to come to those days when they happen, so please do invite me. The other thing for that area is just the other bits are quite unloved, and I think there's a sense that it doesn't look very nice there anyway without the rubbish, so people don't feel that guilty about leaving rubbish everywhere, because there's lots of flower beds that are unattended, and I wondered if there's something that we could do as a council to kind of invest in those bits, because they're obviously built there, and I think they must be. It's our responsibility, SDC, to look after those bits, but they have been neglected for some time. So we'd love to see a little bit of injection of planting, and I love going into those bits, because I think that really helps when people see that we're investing in their local area as well, that they'll respect it more.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. I know we've met with a few tenants in Chapel Street who are really keen to have like a day in the street and have a bit of a project, do a bit, all come out and do a bit with us. So those are the sort of things we can ask people what they'd like, and we can work from there. So yes, I think if we can inject a bit of love and interest in the street, it might make a bit of a difference to people.
Yes, perfect, thank you.
Nelson's Cross was one of the areas that I think was reached out to this week, and we do have 2 phases of issues going on there. So we know there's an issue with refuse. So what we are looking at, we've got phase 1. We're removing the bike racks that are at the front of Nelson's Cross as you walk in. They were put there some years ago at the request of tenants, but our time has changed, and people feel that it would be better to put the refuse back there. So we're looking at repurposing that area. We're going to still use the bike racks elsewhere, so they're not wasted, but we're repurposing that area. But then we've got a phase 2 to look at putting in some extra refuse stores, but that we're working with Impart Links, who are have just done an options appraisal on Nelson's Cross. So we don't want to waste money by making changes now when we can get greater changes by working with them as they start the works along the way. So they actually came out to meet the Middle of the Hill group with us, listen to some of the things they'd like incorporated into the plans, which was really good of them. And they've taken that back. So once the work starts, we will be implementing some of the ideas from the tenants that live in the area. So it's a longer term plan, but we do have a second phase. We're going to implement the first phase in the new year, and then the second phase will be implemented as the work starts. So they are aware that that is happening, and we will constantly keep in touch with them to let them know where we're going with that. At Oak Drive, the new bin stores are going to be delayed until January because of the bins that are coming along. We're hopeful that the new bin store will remove a bit of pressure from the existing bin store. But once the new bin store is opened, we will then, we're going to commission a new area at the existing bin store. We're going to extend the concrete and we're going to put extra bins cabinets in that area. We've also researched and realised that we can take 8 households off of the beige bags collection and give them their own bins, which also should help relieve some of the issues there. So we're hopeful that in the next couple of months we might see a difference by working with the tenants there and seeing where that leads us going forward. Our green champions, we've got a few people interested in that, so we're considering a media campaign at the moment to try and get a few more people interested, and we're currently working on what that role might look like. We're going to meet with the people who've shown an interest in January just to get their ideas and then see if we can get some more people interested as we move forward. So I think that's where we are at the moment for this month with our cleaner estate strategy. With our service standards, we've got a consultation going on at Phillimore Road at the moment. We're working with development team. They're looking at taking the garages down and they're looking at putting in additional car parking. So we've got consultation taking place there at the moment. I don't have any update yet, Colin, but I will let you know when all the results are in. We're also about to start a consultation in Allen Drive and Pagan Hill on a garden area. So we're going to be writing out to tenants there to ask for their views. And in the last week, Matty and I were privileged to attend the Independent Living Focus Group. They've had a couple of meetings to talk about the changes that have happened from shelter to independent living. They've been, on the whole, quite positive about the changes. There are some things they would have liked us to have changed in the way that we did them, and we've taken those on board, those ideas on board. Really great that as a part of the Task and Finish group, we've been talking about tenants charter, and in the meeting they actually said we'd like a tenants charter, so that was great news. So we've co-opted a couple of those people onto the Task and Finish group to tell us what they would like in a tenants charter. They've really enjoyed their meeting, and Lynn Mansell, who's the service delivery manager for independent living, is now going to take that forward and going to be organising regular meetings on a quarterly basis for them and for any other independent living tenants, so they can make sure that they're sharing their views, and they've indicated that they'd like speakers, so we're going to look at where that goes. So that was really worthwhile. I'm sure Matty really enjoyed it, didn't you, Matty? It was really worthwhile just going and listening to them. It's a couple of people that we've known for some years, a couple of people we haven't, and so it was just good to get feedback from people on the ground and see what they'd like us to be doing in the future. So come January, we are looking at having some engagement with the people that have indicated they'd like to be working with us, to say, what are you interested in? What focus groups would you like to see? What, a couple have indicated they're interested in scrutiny. So we're asking them what they would like to be working on, and we're organising a taster day with TPAS for scrutiny, so they can see what would be involved in that. So there's a lot of work going on. Unfortunately, none of it happens overnight, but there's quite a lot of work going on, and we're doing our best to get as many new people involved with us as we possibly can.
Thanks, Michelle. Oh, no, I was just going to tell you, you've still got your microphone on. But have you got another? Do you want to talk?
Yes, please.
Right.
Just wanted to. Is that am I right saying 11 CCTV cameras at Chapel Street? Why so many?
we've done quite a lot of work with the police in Chapel Street, and there's lots of nooks and crannies.
Okay.
So because we're actually going to try and do a project on Chapel Street, we're going to put them right up and down the street so that they pick up as much as possible.
And then who monitors those CCTV?
Charlie Moss, who's our ASB and enforcement officer, he can monitor them in line with RIPA. So, we can't just look at the cameras. We have to look at specific dates and times, or the police can look at them. They sometimes ask us if they can monitor certain things from our cameras, so they can look at them. All the cameras are loaded onto one laptop, so they can come and look at them if they need to.
I have one other question about Nansell's Cross, if that's okay, Chair. So great to hear that all that stuff is going on at Nansell's Cross. With the consultation that you were saying is happening, will that include the cleaning of the communal areas, so the walkways between the flats, etc.? Because when we walked around, we saw that obviously really needed improving. And will that be included in it?
Yeah, we've been working with our team in community spaces, and the Rita, who is the cleaning manager, she's been going out and inspecting after the clean's taken place, and we're talking to the tenants there to get feedback from them as well. So as we move forward, we will continually ask them their views on that. We're also looking at there's lots of, again, inside Nansell's, there's lots of nooks and crannies. And when we went round with Impart Links, we asked them about how we could section those areas off to make it, because we know that people sort of hide in those areas and do, and leave rubbish in those areas. So we're looking at what we can do just to close them off.
Did you say Impart Links? I've never heard of those before. So are they specialists in that kind of? So?
That is their name, isn't it? They're the contractors that we use.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. Laurie, Paula.
I just wanted to say it's lovely to hear your enthusiasm and commitment. I'm sure you'll do really well.
Thanks. And special thanks to Michelle from me. She went to see a very distressed tenant and put her at her ease. And sometimes we can't always do things for people, and we can't do as much as they'd like. But the communication of telling people, even that, it can be a comfort to people. And Michelle's very good at that. So my personal thanks to Michelle for what she does for us. Nicholas.
Thanks. And yeah, just one point from me, firstly to Michelle, but possibly to members more widely. What was our feeling from how the situation with the skip sort of worked, and what's our gut feeling around having this as part of a longer term strategy going forward? Don't know what members' views are on us doing this, more frequently to try and to stop, to play a part in stopping the issues that we've had, that have been obviously quite public in the last couple of weeks. I just wondered what, firstly, Michelle's sort of feel on it was, and also potentially to members more widely.
I think we thought we'd trial it. They use it in the independent living schemes. They've got a couple dotted around. It's been really successful. Obviously, they know there's people on site, so they know straight away when something has been fly tipped. But we thought we'd use it in an area where we have a lot of fly tipping as a pilot. So we've used it for 1 week and it's been filled, but we are going to monitor that. If it works well, then we would consider using that across the district. It certainly means we can react much quicker, because at the moment, if somebody reports to us that items have been fly tipped between Monday and Thursday, we can't get it collected until the next Monday, which is the day that Ubico have as a spare collection day. So by utilising our site officers, we're able to get collections much quicker of this nature. So if it works successfully in Dursley, then we will certainly be looking at rolling it out across the district in areas where we know we've got considerable issues.
Great stuff. If I could just come back, so potentially it is something we're looking at as part of a wider scheme. Would that just be on our estates so that come within SDC, or is that something we're looking at across the district in terms of just generally trying to help with the fly tipping issues that we're seeing across the district?
Michelle, before we go any further about when we talk about our estates are no longer our estates. There are less of our houses on what are termed council estates than anything else. So we do tend to pick it all up though, don't we? So I think now and again we need to remind ourselves that our estates aren't all our households, but you know, we still do the same job.
I suppose I would say we pick up from HRA land.
Thanks. Can I ask something, Michelle?
Putting you on the spot now.
No, I think it's just, I mean, I know the answer to this question, I think, but, and I know you've just mentioned it, but you've used several times in part links. It trips off the tongue, and there are contractors, but I think it's so important that that everyone knows who they are, what they do, how they fit in, why they're so important, and how they are supported and advised in carrying out work. So can you just tell us a little bit about impart links and what, or Joe, maybe you can do it, because it's almost a bit of code that those of us that are close to it use. Everyone, you assume everyone else knows, but not everybody does. So that just, almost, can you just give some facts about them, please?
I just think they're really good guys.
Okay, so basically impart links are consultants. They're one of a number of consultants that we use across the business, just to support us in terms of delivery and quantifying some of the specialisms, just in terms of design or structural surveying. We might want to look at the external facades and just get some additional advice, and they just provide that additional support. But what they are very good at is kind of the people focus, so that they will engage with local communities and with teams, and they're pretty relaxed about the way they kind of, they're not sort of stuffy at all. They kind of really kind of relaxed and sort of down to earth. And I think they just got a lot of people. So that's basically impart links in a nutshell.
Thank you for that explanation. And thanks, Michelle. And yes, I really did enjoy my day out with you, with the focus group. It was really good. I think we're really lucky to have TPAS as our partners with who work with our tenant representatives. Which brings us nicely on to our tenant representative we've got here tonight, and he's sitting there all on his own mic. Would you like to give any sort of verbal update from anything you're doing at the moment? I know you're on a very valuable member of a task and finish group, but is there anything you would like to share with us this evening?
Well, during the last few days, I've had a face-to-face meeting with our mentor, Mal Harrison. That was very interesting. She's quite, I don't know if anybody else knows about her, but she's been in housing and everything like that. So she's very good at giving us information and helping us out. The other thing I found with the Task to Finish group, I'm getting a lot of feedback from some of the tenants where I live on the program that we're doing on the installations and things. There's been some problems, but Joe's very kindly helping us sort those out by passing me on to the right people. So that's quite good. And the whole fact of being a tenant representative is opened my eyes to a lot of things that are going on here, and what problems that the council has to face, and how they overcome them. And that's about it at the moment. I'm learning every time I come and visit here.
We're learning from you too. You really do. It's really good how much you share with us. We're very lucky to have you. So we've just spoken about task and finish groups, and of course we've got 3, and we're going to have some, hopefully brief updates from the lead councillors, and starting off with Chris, who's the lead councillor on the retrofit and carbon reduction task and finish group.
Thank you, Chair. Since the last committee meeting, the task and finish group, retrofit task and finish group has met again. I think our main focus is on thinking about the tenants as occupants of the buildings that we hope to retrofit with new technology, and recognising that the success of the programme isn't just about technology. It's about engagement with people and their understanding of what's trying to be achieved, so they can enjoy, the benefits as much as possible individually in terms of saving money and being warmer and healthier in their home, as well as achieving the other objective of saving carbon in the context of a climate and ecological emergency. Obviously, the factors, we talked about some of the factors that influence the way in which the installed performance will work as opposed to the modelled performance. And there are things that really the council can't and shouldn't attempt to control. It might influence, but people live their own lifestyles. They occupy the building in the way they want to. It may change over time and so forth. All of those things are normal. What we hope to do is optimise the use of the technology so that, as I said, that it benefits people as much as possible. What we talked about in that context was how to sort of use best practice in terms of engagement, information, training, to gain acceptance of the idea in the first place, so people took up the offer in the first place, but also that they, wherever possible, whilst respecting their freedom as individuals and to live their life in their own way, that we we nudge and enable behaviour that, again, that makes the use of the technology as good as possible. And I shared some ideas from previous work I'd done as a sustainability professional around that, and they're all loaded up to our Teams channel, just so you know, that we use to communicate in between meetings and during meetings. What I've done also as the lead member in the meantime is develop, I warned you earlier, developed a dashboard, which I hope we can use both as a kind of reasonably steady agenda. Do you want to just flick the next slide? That's the one here, yeah. Which I hope we can use, and it's changeable. We can use it to both report up, and I acknowledge the point that Keith made earlier about the addition that Councillor Steve Hind suggested about adding an extra line into the top line, which is basically the things that we will report out. But also underneath those are tiers where, which we both justify to ourselves and ask the probing question ourselves: why do we think it's going okay, or why do we think it's not going so well, and what are we going to do about it? So underline, and they come to 5 areas, probably making sure that we've got actually a project management team and a system to actually achieve things, making sure the financials are in place, making sure we've got the contractors in place and they're performing well, making sure that we're tracking external contextual risk, to the things that are outside of our control, but we can perhaps mitigate or avoid as far as possible, and also tracking some of the internal risks that would affect the success of the project. And critically, number 6 there, you'll see on the sort of second panel down, around, as I mentioned earlier, a key success factor is going to be tenant engagement. And obviously we need to talk to our colleagues, the other task and finish groups around that, because hopefully we'll work closely together around that. Definitely always, using our own experience and using the fact we're embedded in our communities, but also drawing on best practice around how to do that. I won't go into the other levels of detail. Really, what I hope that is, what it'll be, and I hope it will be changed and commented on. It's in a shared workspace in our task and finish group Teams channel. So I hope people will comment and suggest edits and so forth. But what I hope it will be is a kind of a reasonably fixed but changing agenda for us. Some things we'll look at frequently. Some things we'll look at maybe more, less frequently as we review the progress and ensure the success of the project. I think that's enough from me at the moment, but thank you, Chair.
That's really clear. I think this dashboard is really, really very useful, and there's a really good group. And going forward, I'm sure you'll agree, those of you who are on this group. So, tenant engagement, I think that's Colin, isn't it?
Thank you, Chair. Right, firstly, the meeting to review communication channels for tenants to SDC was postponed. So a new meeting is to be arranged with the task and finish group. At this meeting, we will be looking to interrogate the telephone data that is held, and we will also be gaining an understanding of the complaints that are raised by tenants and how these complaints are investigated. Now, this is important because we've said that is a complaint, I know it sounds silly, but is a complaint a real complaint? Or is it people that are fed up, they can't get hold of someone, so they go to the next process, which is complaints. So we need to look up the complaints and exactly what they're all about. Now, Michelle mentioned a lot of what I had on here previously with the champions that we are looking for. And I can tell you, out of the new tenants, we've got 8 that are interested in repair and inspection. We got 4 neighbourhood ambassadors, community champions. We got 7 that were interested to be green champions and focus group activities, 12. At the recent focus group held for independent living tenants, a discussion was raised around a tenant's charter. At the task and finish group are currently considering a tenant's charter. 2 tenants from the focus group will be joining the task and finish group to work with us. And this again is important that we get tenants. This is tenants involvement, task and finish. We must have tenants on there. It's no good us just sitting there. We need tenants on there. Last but not least, the group will be reviewing the ARC report, which again is important. I think that's it, Chair.
Yeah, I think you're doing some grand work on there, Colin. I'm really, really pleased with the way we're working with officers. And that separate meeting we had for the tenant charter was useful too. And I think we can take that forward, can't we? I know it seems a lot of meetings, but Zoom has saved us in some ways that we can just stay at home and do them, doesn't it? I think they were all here. I think we'd be struggling a bit more, but there's a lot of good work going on there, and really I'm so pleased. And Paula, would you like to, I know you've got a report you shared with us for the housing repairs and the voids and the task and finish group, which is a bit of a hot topic tonight, yeah, isn't it, Ben?
It is. Thank you, Matty. Yes, so I'm on the housing repairs and void task and finish group. And what we've been working on is exclusively a void task and finish group. So that has been a hot topic, and I know that the Empty Homes team have really been working hard on the voids, and they have progressed from a static position of approximately 120 properties void to 91 as of yesterday. That doesn't mean to say they won't get 35 keys in tomorrow, but but it is going down. So what we actually looked at were the issues which are giving the team a real headache. And not surprisingly, it starts before the notice period. If customers don't engage in cyclical upgrades of things like kitchens and bathrooms and windows and whatever, that all has to be picked up when the property becomes void, because if you've got a dated kitchen, it needs to be replaced before it's relet and increase the void time. So what the group suggested is that greater emphasis is put on actively encouraging and supporting customers to have this cyclical works done. It may well be that they can't face the disruption you know, I can imagine it can be a bit of a nightmare, particularly if you're somebody who doesn't like change. Or you might find that you feel that you can't actually physically clear your kitchen yourself, or you don't want anybody to look at your house or whatever. But a little bit of investment and support around those issues might actually reduce void times going forward. The next issue pre-void is property damage and neglect during tenancies. And the group suggested that regular tenancy inspections and home visits are undertaken with customers to enable SDC to identify customers who are struggling to maintain their homes. I mean, I appreciate that there are resource issues, but obviously any damage during tenancies has to be remedied when properties become empty. And again, that will extend the void period and the cost. Then we looked at the notice period, and one of the issues is that the repairs and voids team aren't always aware when notice is received. So it suggested, the group suggested that, you know, they are notified as soon as notice is received to maximise the opportunity for joint pre-void inspections and to enable the teams to clarify exactly what Stroud District expects from outgoing tenants in terms of the property condition, in terms of clearance or repairs to broken doors or whatever. Our understanding is that pre-void inspections are limited by available resources, and they are undertaken for transfers, but often with single SDC representation, but not for all types of notice. And obviously you can't, it wouldn't be sensible to undertake pre-void inspections for abandonment, eviction or death, but to increase the number of pre-void inspections with a surveyor and an NMO, and possibly a follow-up visit would be brilliant. But again, that depends on resources, but that's one of the recommendations of the group. The other issue is that there is no incentive to leave the property in excellent condition or any consequence, as far as we're aware, but I mean, obviously we don't know, for leaving the property uncleared or in poor condition. And what the group has suggested is that there's a small reward for leaving well, and that recharges for property clearance and deliberate damage are introduced. I know there's a lot of discussion about that, whether you could actually follow through with it because of resources, but the group did feel that it was quite important that those expectations were recognised and there were seen to be consequences for moving on and leaving all your rubbish in a house. During the void period, again, keys are currently, I understand, returned to SDC offices, which can cause confusion and delays to the repairs and void team having access to the property. So the group suggested that a key safe process be assessed in line with pre-void inspections and notifications to enable a more efficient transition of keys and therefore earlier work commencement. We also suggested that there was a better communication between the repairs and voids team and allocations and lettings. And it suggested that the voids team let the allocations team know between 6 and 8 weeks before the anticipated lettings date to introduce earlier advertising and reduce the period that the property is empty after the work's been completed. Adrian has advised that works which can be undertaken after the letting, such as external works, etc., are currently done, which is after the tenant moves into the property, and this is reducing void time and increases the rental income. I will read this out verbatim because this is Adrian's. Waste and associated cleaning generated and processed through voids work is significant and approximately 220 to 240,000 per year. The majority of waste heads to landfill and as such negatively impacts on our environmental aspirations. We would suggest a cross-organisational review of waste management and logistics to be set up to aid and assist property care to better manage and recycle both repairs and void waste. And lastly, and this links into my question about the IT system, our understanding is that at present, tenancies end on a Sunday and commence on a Monday. And it is suggested that lettings processes are changed to facilitate tenancies starting on any day of the week. This will reduce void periods and maximise rental income. There's no legal reason why tenancies should commence on a Monday, and other providers don't generally restrict themselves to letting on one day. The current practice increases void periods for up to 6 days and reduces rental income and increases empty homes council tax costs, and might also increase the number of customers in temporary accommodation unnecessarily. So if there is a systems reason why lettings, which I think I've been told, why lettings only take place on a Monday, I would hope that it is suggested that the new IT system facilitates lettings on any day of the week. And I think that the group is largely going to put the void process to bed and sort of formalise those recommendations. And then we'll be looking at repairs, which is going to be a whole new exciting bag.
But we can jolly well look forward to that, can't we? I think that group's done such a lot of work and picked up so many things that we didn't know existed, and I think the team knew existed sometimes. So thanks for that. And we move on to repairs, completely renewed, I think. It's a good group, and I think Adrian leads us. And there's been a few visits as well, haven't there, to voids and things like that. So thanks for that, Paula. We're going to move on now to the work programme. Any comments on that? I'm aware of the time that's going on. There's just an update on there. You'll see on the February agenda that we've got the minimum energy efficiency standards policy. Housing Renewal Manager will be doing that. So that's been added to the February meeting, which will be sort of next year now. So any comments on the work programme? Lucas.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know at some point, not tonight necessarily, more about the play area strategy and what that is based on.
Yeah.
And how it possibly impacts on Highfield Road.
Yeah, we are doing a bit of work on that, aren't we? That's, yeah. We'll certainly add that in. Thank you, Lucas. Yep. Right. So we've come to the end of that. So we're on to members' questions. So would you like to read your members' question?
Yeah, I won't stand because it's nice and warm where I'm sat. My question is this. Stonehouse Town Council recently completed a public consultation on the ship-in site in Stonehouse to see what residents would like at the site. The consultation was well participated in, with 9% of the adult population taking part. The results show overwhelmingly in support of community facilities on the site, with 94% of responses voting this way. It is clear that the people of Stonehouse, whom I represent, have spoken on this matter. Can the Chair now confirm she agrees with me that it is time to truly represent the people of Stonehouse, whom we are here to serve, and remove this site from the housing revenue account?
Thank you. I think most of you know here that I do represent Stonehouse and have done for a number of years. Truly, I hope, represented what they need. And my reply is, the District Council is in the process of developing a strategy for the entire canal corridor, which will involve key partners and communities across the district. District Council officers met with representatives from the Town Council to explain this Council's approach to the consultation for the canal strategy. At that meeting, STC officers did not support the Town Council's consultation exercise. In fact, they expressed concerns about its ambiguous wording. SDC is keen to ensure that any future consultation exercises are coordinated to ensure we can effectively capture local views on the future of the canal corridor through the Stonehouse area. The results of the Town Council's consultation on this SDC-owned site is noted, including the low level of representation. This will feed into the wider consultation for the canal strategy, which is currently underway. Whilst bearing in mind the limitations of the Town Council survey, We will take it into account when considering the future use of the site and the surrounding canal area. As confirmed at a recent meeting of this committee, the site will remain in the housing revenue account, and it is expected that a further report on the future proposals for the site and the wider area, which could include community facilities, will be brought back to this committee in the spring. But this is dependent on the cooperation of a private landowner. We would welcome close working with the Town Council as this progresses.
Thank you. Can I ask my supplementary, please? In your answer, you mentioned the District Council expressed concerns around the wording, which I have learnt the Town Council subsequently changed. You also mentioned in your answer that consultation got low-level representation. 600 responses, in my view, is not low-level. In fact, councillors in Stonehouse actually elected members on a similar number. I would also point out that on record, I have found no public consultation by Stonehouse Town Council with a higher level of engagement. So, given that in your answer is incorrect on 2 points around wording and engagement levels, does the Chair agree that the answer given is a complete disregard for the hard work of the Town Council, which they have done with taxpayers' money, and that the District Council's plans to ignore it and carry on to spend £1.8 million on 9 homes is irrespective of these results?
I cannot agree with all you're saying, and I recognise what you're saying about Stonehouse Town Council and its consultation. In fact, I can't recall Stonehouse Town Council consulting on very much at all. And what you're saying, 9% of people responded, 91% didn't. And the question was clearly ambiguous. So no, I don't agree with you. We don't want to leave this meeting on such a sour note. And can I just remind everyone of the Homeless and Home Seeker that's next week at 6 o'clock with Julian and Pippa. And just thank everybody for their contributions tonight. I think it's been a very lively sort of meeting. And wish everybody a happy Christmas. And I'd like to give you a little bit of assurance about the out of hours, because that's been a pretty hot topic. I don't know, does anybody else want to join in what I'm saying? But I think we have this year built in quite a lot of resilience because of the failure of last year. For one thing, the office is going to be closed for a shorter period, I think, this year, and I've only just really discovered that it's only going to be closed for 1 week. But even then, we've got a rota of very experienced officers on call, and our own workforce and supervisors will be on hand for added resilience, which includes the gas heating, I understand, Joe. Yeah, which will be really good, and all contacts will be shared across the council. So I don't know if you want to add anything more into that, but I'm really hopeful that as much as that could be done is going to be done to keep people safe over the Christmas period, because this is when it's happened, isn't it? You know. When I cooked on bottled gas, the gas always ran out when I was cooking. I don't know why. It could have run out any other time, but it always ran out when I was cooking. And that's what happens, doesn't it? Yeah. Do you want to add anything?
No, I think
you've been very quiet tonight.
Let's change. No, I think you answered it very well.
Thank you.
Just to confirm one thing, Matty, we will be circulating an information sheet to all members before Christmas about the contact details linked to our members.
Well, that's really good news. There's still some mince pies and sweeties at the back. Please help yourselves to it. And can I urge you? I've just had this email popped into my inbox today, and I just wanted to say, you know, if anybody's got anything spare, the food bank is really struggling. They've seen a 40% increase in food bank referrals across the Stroud district. And in Stroud wards especially, there's a 70% increase. And people are really struggling with high food prices and emergency bills. And of course, the universal credit the cut hasn't helped. So if anybody's got anything spare, I stood outside Tesco's in Cam and Stroud, and people were just so generous. And just think of the people that won't be having such a happy Christmas this year.
Just repeat those two stats.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry to interrupt you. I just want to just.
A 40% increase in food bank referrals across the Stroud district in November. And in Stroud wards, there's a 70% increase. I don't know why I presume that's Stroud town. Yeah. But I will check on that if anybody wants to know. I don't want to end up on a sour note, but I just want us, when we're all having a good time at Christmas, and I hope you all do, just to think about some people that aren't having such a good time. And that's what we're here to serve, aren't we? And thank you all for all your contributions over this year. And thank you, Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Please take a mince pie home and some sweets.